How do you use your blog in your academic work? So, in whatever way, what's its relationship to your work?
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Does anybody else want to start?
I want Michael to start. We vote.
Okay. Well, mine, I mean, the topic is focused upon my research interests. I write about K-12 online learning. And because it's a small community and because most of the other folks, you know, there's 3 or 4 of them at Boise State, 3 or 4 of them at Florida, so, you know, geographically we're both quite dispersed and quite, well, I'm the only one at Wayne State, is an easy way of saying it. You know, we've got a couple in Canada, there's a couple down in New Zealand, there's one guy over in the UK. So this is a way for us to sort of all keep in contact, not just in terms of what's going on in the research, but also in terms of just what's going on generally in the news. You know, most people in Canada wouldn't have known, at least in our community, that Alabama last year decided to make online learning a requirement for high school graduation. You know, and that's an avenue to put out some of those news. My colleagues in New Zealand wouldn't have known it at all, but you know, so those are, it's a way of sort of bringing together those groups, and it's also a way of bridging that practitioner-researcher divide. Because such a large percentage of my audience are practitioners, I get a lot of emails from people, and actually I think my most recent entry is actually a parent who's living in Washington State that came across my blog and was moving to Michigan and emailed me a question asking, you know, what I knew about particular opportunities for her kid who's going to be in grade 3 next year. And incidentally, there wasn't much there, so at least that I know of, so I posted it there to see if anyone actually knew of anything else beyond what I could describe to them. And when I responded via email, I let her know that, you know, it's up there, keep an eye on it in case others are looking. So, and it's something that I think is an integral part of my job. I mean, I update 3, 4, 5 times a day in most cases. You know, but a lot of that isn't original content. A lot of that is stuff like this that, you know, as it comes through my inbox, as I see it on Facebook or on Twitter or on Plurk or, you know, one of the other Web 2.0 applications I'm following, I'll post it there so people in my community can see it. You know, I can't remember if it's still on the front page there, but there's a webinar coming up later this week by Tapped In that's dealing with online teaching, and it's the first time in 4 years they've had anything to do with online learning in their weekly seminars. So those types of things.
Well, mine's more of an extension of my professional practice, but my field of research is communication. And within communication, you have this 2-step flow of communication, where what you were talking about, the researcher-practitioner divide, even in a field, you're not going to be able to keep up with everything. And if there's somebody who's in the know that you can go to for a reliable source of information, a blog is a great venue for doing that, because you know, you don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time. It's visual, it's interactive. In my field, it also connects me, as I was saying, to a community across the country. I've been working in this field for 10 years, and it's really tough in Canada, again, because of the geography of Canada, to collaborate on these very specific issues. It's not like you're talking about an entire disciplinary field. You're talking about a very specific niche market. So in your average PhD program, you're going to have a handful of students. A handful of them are going to be starting to, you know, hit the point where they're actually thinking about career stuff. So, you know, 2 or 3 students, 4 students in a program per year, and there's not a whole lot of folks to talk about. Now, in my field, again, in communications, there are other researchers, and we had Henry Jenkins there. Did you have this? Yep. Henry Jenkins in communications is like the god of blogging. And in his field, he becomes the go-to guy. If you're interested in participatory culture, fan clubbing, anything like that, fan culture, he's the guy you go to. And you would start your research with Henry Jenkins' blog. So in this field, there's certain researchers that have taken on a mentoring role, and it is very much a mentoring role, where they're not only producing research, they're disseminating research across national borders. So you know that when you go to his blog, Whatever's new in this particular niche area of communications is going to be there. And that's a really interesting way of doing this, because traditionally in academia we've had the journals, we've had conferences, but if you can't get the conference, and journals, because of the time lag, are only so useful for cutting edge information, it's hard to get that cutting edge stuff out there. And because of the fracturing within disciplines, in terms of the necessary fragmentation within disciplines, we have very specialized interests within disciplines. So again, this is a very efficient, accessible way of getting specific information out to a niche audience, which geographically may be very small, but globally may be quite substantial.
Relationship to my work, well, at Memorial, teaching, research, and service are my three responsibilities. So this is obviously directly connected to the teaching aspect, but my interest is teacher education and mathematics education, so the content is directly connected to my area of research. I forgot to mention, probably very importantly, I have my students' blog. That is part of what they do, and that emerged over time as well for many reasons. It was easier, I have them be very reflective on what they're reading, and I use the blogs as a way to do that. And in one sense it's practical because I'm not trying to gather in all their journals and get them back to them. But I also wanted them to experience what it means to put your ideas out there and the power of the internet, and with that comes a certain responsibility. And so by doing that, and as they are either learning about teaching or they already are teaching, I want them to experience what it means to have that work be so public, to give possibly children an opportunity to also do the same. So when I work with them, I want them to also work with their students or future students in this way. And what's really interesting is now I've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's already starting to filter where I have them reflect on the experience. And they will say, you know, at first I wasn't sure about this, particularly the graduate students. I wasn't sure about this, I was a little uncomfortable, but the thing is there's decisions to be made about how much you say and what you say, and that's all part of learning and be reflective as a learner. But they're having their students now make blogs because they realize the power and potential of that. And that part was a really nice byproduct of sharing the blogs with them.
To give you an example of my own work, this semester I'm teaching a course called Research in Post-Secondary Education, and it's via distance education. Desire to Learn is the course management system we're using, and so we have a discussion forum within the course. And so I have a special forum called Post-Secondary Education Blog, and my blogging isn't always directly relevant to that course, but 2 days ago there was a story in the Globe and Mail. There's a 5-person task force that was set up by the federal government to look at some of the data problems in tracking labor force requirements in the coming years, and it talked about how you know, in Canada it's kind of a bit of a disaster that we don't know how many students are graduating from college, and we don't have information about university graduates that's available as quickly as we could probably need it. So that was directly relevant to the course, so I posted a link in the discussion forum, and so we had a discussion in there. So I use it as a supplement in the course, but I also use it to blog about broader issues around policy and politics in post-secondary education.